Hello everyone, my name is Matthew, and this is Learn the Lingo. Welcome to Lesson 3 of Hebrew Basics, a series where we are learning the grammar of the Hebrew language. Last time, we learned the 4 forms of Hebrew adjectives, and today we are going to continue to practice those and also learn how to use adjectives to describe nouns in Hebrew. Let's see the 4 different forms of the Hebrew adjective for cold. The masculine singular form, which is kind of the default form, onto which we can add endings to make the other forms, is kar. The ending we need to make the feminine singular form is kamatz and silent hey. We add that to kar to make kara. The masculine plural form ending is hirik, yud, and final mem. Im, we add that to kar to make karim. And finally, the feminine plural ending is vav with holam and tav, which say ot. We add that to kar to make karot. Kar, kara, karim, karot. Kar, kara, karim, karot. In our last lesson, we saw that the plural of the word karik, sandwich, is karichim, sandwiches. We saw that the vowel of the first syllable gets shortened from an a to a shva. Karik, karichim. This happens because the accent gets pulled away to the last syllable, which does not give the first syllable enough stress to have its own vowel sound, now that the accent is all the way here at the end. This can also happen with adjectives when we add the endings onto them, especially if the adjective is 2 syllables. We see this with the Hebrew adjective for big, which is gadol, a 2-syllable word. When we add the endings a, im, and ot onto gadol, the kamatz under the gimel will always contract to a shva. So we don't have gadola, but gadola. So the 4 forms of gadol are gadol, gadola, gadolim, gadolot. Gadol, gadola, gadolim, gadolot. Now let's see the 4 forms of the adjective kasher, which means hard. Now, this adjective works a little bit differently because it ends with an S sound in its masculine singular form. This S sound is spelled with a sagol and silent hey. When adding endings onto adjectives whose masculine singular form ends with an we must take off the sound, which is spelled with the silent hey, and the sagol before we add the endings to make the other forms. So once we have removed this from the masculine singular form kasher, we just have this kash, onto which we can add the normal endings to make the other forms. An ending to make the feminine singular form kasha, an im ending to make the masculine plural form kashim, and an ot ending to make the feminine plural form kashot. Kasher, kasha, kashim, kashot. Kasher, kasha, kashim, kashot. And let's see the 4 forms of one more adjective, garua, which means bad, as in poor quality. Now this adjective also works a little bit differently when we add the endings onto it to make the different forms. This is because the ayin has a patak. Now when ayin or het is at the end of a word and the vowel before them is not an a vowel, they must take a patak, which says a. But once we add the endings onto this adjective, the ayin or het will not be the last letter of the word, and so the patak can be taken away. So that means that what we are adding the endings onto is now just garu. So once we remove the patak from under the ayin and contract the kamatz under the gimel to a shva, we can now add the endings that we always do. For the feminine singular form, we will add a kamatz and a silent hey to say a, to get garu a. For the masculine plural form, we will add the ending hirik, yud, and final mem to say im. So the masculine plural form of this adjective is garuim. And for the feminine plural form, we add the ending vav with holam and tav, which say ot, to get garuot. Now note that there are 2 differences between the masculine singular form, garua, and the feminine singular form, garua. Not only is the kamatz contracted to a shva, but in garua, the accented syllable is ru, and in garua, the accented syllable is a. So the 4 forms of the Hebrew adjective for bad is garua, garu'a, garuim, and garuot. Garua, gado-a, gado-im, gado-ot. Now that we've practiced these 4 forms of Hebrew adjectives, we can now use them to describe nouns. You may remember from our last lesson that when we are describing a noun, the adjective that is describing it must agree with the noun in gender and number. So if we have a feminine singular noun, the adjective describing it must also be feminine and also singular. One way we use adjectives to describe nouns in English is putting them directly before the noun they are describing, as in a small cake. Small is the adjective which goes before the noun it is describing, cake. Today we are going to learn how to say things like this in Hebrew. First of all, the word a is a word that is not translated into Hebrew. So a small cake and small cake would be the same thing in Hebrew. So when we translate a small cake into Hebrew, we can just ignore the a. As for the word cake, the Hebrew word for cake is uga. Uga is a feminine singular noun, which means that the adjective small, which is describing it, must be in a feminine singular form. The default masculine singular form of small is katan, and to make it into a feminine singular form, we must add an a ending with a kamatz and silent hey to give us katana. Also, notice how the vowel of the first syllable gets shortened from a kamatz to a shva, since we are adding an ending to a 2-syllable word. So, the feminine singular form of katan is katana, which we will use to describe uga, which is a feminine singular noun. So now we have all the Hebrew words. There is no Hebrew word for a. The Hebrew word for cake is uga, which is a feminine singular noun, and so we need a feminine singular form of the adjective small, which is katana, to agree with that noun. So now we just put this all together, like katana uga, right? Well, not quite. This is how we would do it in English. We put the adjective first, and then the noun it is describing. But in Hebrew, it goes the other way around. In Hebrew, first we say the noun, uga, and then the adjective that is describing it, katana. So a small cake in Hebrew is uga katana. Uga katana, a small cake. Let's use the same structure with a few more nouns and adjectives. To say cold cheeses in Hebrew, we first will say the word cheeses, which is the noun, and then we'll say the word for cold, which is the adjective. So here we have the word gavina, which is the singular cheese, and to make it plural, we will take off this a ending and replace it with an ot ending. Remember, the a ending is a feminine singular ending for the singular cheese, and the ot ending is the feminine plural ending, which is what we use for the plural cheeses. So gavinot is the plural cheeses. So with this structure in Hebrew, first we have our noun, gavinot, cheeses, and then we have the adjective which is describing it. The masculine singular form of cold in Hebrew is kar, and remember to make a masculine singular form feminine plural, we add the ot ending. So that is a vav with cholam and a letter tav. Those say ot, so the feminine plural form of cold is karot. So cold cheeses is gavinot karot. We can use the same structure to say bitter nuts in Hebrew. First we'll say the noun, nuts, and then the adjective, bitter. So here we have the word egos, which is the singular nut. Egos is a masculine noun, and so to make it plural, nuts, we must add the masculine plural im ending. So that is hirik, yud, and final mem. They say im, which we add onto egos to get egozim, nuts. After the noun egozim, we'll add the adjective for bitter. The masculine singular form of bitter is mar. And to make it masculine plural, we must add the im ending. So that is hirik, yud, and final mem, which say im. Add that to mar to get marim. So bitter nuts is egozim marim. Now it's your turn. How would we say tasty chicken in Hebrew? Remember that the masculine singular form of tasty is ta'im, and the word for chicken is of, which is a masculine singular noun. Alright, so to say tasty chicken in Hebrew, first we say the noun, chicken, which is of, and then we say the adjective for tasty. This adjective must agree with the masculine singular noun of, And ta'im is already in its masculine singular form, so we don't have to change it at all. It's just ta'im. Of ta'im. Tasty chicken. Of ta'im. And that's all for today. In our next lesson, we are going to see a couple more ways we can use adjectives to describe nouns in sentences. If you want to see that, be sure to hit subscribe and click on the bell so you get a notification every time I upload a new video. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like, commenting, and sharing. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.